Welcome to the Landlord Advocates. I'm your host, Matthew Lyman. This is going to be our first, but not our last, what is called a reactionary video. What that is that we review videos of others, in this case, our video, and we offer commentary and rebuttal to the comments made by the speakers to their audience. Before we begin this video, though, we want to tell you about it. It is regarding a town hall meeting that took place on December 1st, 2022. It was supposed to happen 2 or 3 months earlier, but it did not happen because the day of the event, that morning, the Landlord Advocates, we sent out a social media blast and an email blast, which included other members of the media, to inform them to attend the meeting. That morning, we did that. About 2 hours later, City Council member Carla Williams decided to cancel the town hall meeting 5 hours before it was to begin. Now, we were in the Times Union newspaper the following day, and on Talk 1300 in Paul Vandenberg, telling them that we took credit for them canceling the town hall meeting. And many people agreed that we were the reason why it was canceled. Councilmember Carla Williams said that he and his daughter were sick that Friday, and because he felt that it would not, the town hall meeting would not run the way he wanted it to, that he decided on his own to cancel their meeting. But he was perfectly fine that Monday at the city council meeting. Now, this meeting is regarding rent regulations, rent control, issues regarding rental property in the city of Schenectady, which is right outside the capital of Albany, the capital of New York State. Now, the people that you see in the video there, the man in the blue sweater is Councilmember John Mutaviran. The one standing next to him is Councilmember Damani Foley. Damani Foley is the one, over the summer, had brought up the issue of rent stabilization in the city of Schenectady at a city council committee meeting. We did a video right outside that meeting room that night. We will share that video with you at the end of this video. The woman you see getting out of her chair is City Council President Marion Porterfield. She's about ready to get up and speak about ERAP and how ERAP has this money through the end of September. They're reviewing applications. Now, I will let you know that the company that was doing the audio on this, it came out not all that well. We had our microphone on the podium to pick up on the words of the speakers. Some of it is broken up. We apologize for that. We are working on fixing that for future videos. But without further ado, here is the town hall meeting held on December 1st in the city of Schenectady regarding housing-related issues for tenants. Now, there is a little lag with the video. We don't know why that is, but we will be working on fixing that for future videos. It may be just this one. We're going to find out why and find out how we can fix it.
Thank you. And again, welcome everyone. Glad that you're here and that we are able to take this on. So the first thing that I wanted to remind people, or just say, if you didn't know, that the ERAP program.
That is Carla Williams, the one in the green sweater who decided
Right
to
now,
cancel
they're
the
accepting
meeting.
processing applications that have been received through the 30th of September. And but they're continuing to receive applications, and once they get through this week, then they'll funding allowed, they'll move on to the second. So if you have people that are in that situation, or if you as a landlord want to submit your application, I recommend that you do that. And if you have an application that was submitted before the 30th of September, then you expect to be here some things. I did speak with OTDA today, the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance today, and they said that there's processing further. So and I know it's a daunting process.
Again, the audio, which you can tell is not very good, provided by the company that was hired to record this town hall meeting.
Go ahead and start. Yes, sir. All right. My name is Tom Vandor. I'm president of the Capital District Association of Rental Property Owners, but I'm also a property owner in the city. And
more a consultant to that organization.
But I'm really speaking on my own behalf at this point. I'm not really talking on behalf of CADARPO. But nevertheless, I'm basically trying to follow your structure on this particular meeting. So in my opinion, what are the facing tenants and homeowners? So I just prepared some comments so I can get through this quickly. Challenges facing landlords and private homeowners include, frankly, the broad overreach of government and the growing inability of landlords to remove bad actors who game the system, as witnessed countless during the sham, in my opinion, sham de facto eviction moratorium under the unfunded ERAP. That's been a real problem. Another problem or challenge is the ability to properly screen prospective tenants and include those who are deemed to be unqualified on the basis crushed by having objective factors and those bases removed from our purview. Tenants are feeling the pain.
An ally, we wanted to have it all.
To them as additional protections, quote unquote. The HSTPA of 2018 and other local laws are forcing tenants to pay much higher rent than might otherwise be necessary because government fiat has increased and expanded that private owners must overcome. Increased risks and costs faced by landlords must be offset with higher rents because while the government is quick to levy penalties and delay action to correct the behavior of tenants, government is not about to offset the costs borne by landlords and efforts required by landlords to correct those bad acts. Another significant challenge is the failure of the city building and codes departments to enforce responsibility of tenants. Easier to target and hold responsible the tax-paying property owner because they are an easier target due to their unmovable stake in the enterprise. Tenants can disappear with 30 days notice and never be held accountable. Landlords should not be punished for the bad acts of others, be they tenants or trespassers, particularly when it comes to property, loot common space, streets and alleys, and participate in nuisance behaviors that affect the community and reduce the quality of life. Landlords and property owners should not have to go through the extraordinary gymnastics to right the wrongs imposed by those responsibilities as human beings living in our community. As for recommendations, I would say, frankly, stay away from the notion of rent control, rent regulation, and similar concepts. Further regulations that impede the rights who have worked hard and earned the ability to offer good functional housing to tenants. Instead, work with property owners to even the playing field and tear down barriers that add unaffordable costs to landlords and property owners that inevitably must be passed along to the tenant. Participate in landlord association meetings around the Capital District, have open dialogue, and seek to understand the business of the rental industry before passing additional regulations into law. Enforce the responsibilities borne by tenants in terms of caring for the properties that they have been given the opportunity to live in. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great comments by Tom, very good comments by Tom. Please concur with everyone.
Hi, my name is Jolene Richardson. I'm not sure how this goes, but I'm a tenant here in Schenectady. I've been living here for about 5 years now. And my problem is that it's like when they do the month-to-month lease, I have 4 children. Even when I'm paying my rent on time and I have all my receipts to back me up, they still ask us to leave without purpose.
Now here she is complaining about being asked to leave. If she's paying her rent on time at the locations that she's lived at and not destroying the property or causing any issues, when I say that she is, but we're saying that landlords don't look to evict tenants who are paying their rent. If she is being evicted and being told that they're not going to renew a lease, because of some other reasons, such as destroying the property, being unruly, being disrespectful to other neighbors, to other tenants, or to the landlord.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Hafiz, and I'm a landlord in the city. And here to speak again is the proposed cap on the rent increases that landlords could charge. And I just want to know why the rage against the landlord? Why the rage? I don't know why people have such rage against landlord. here. We have a lot of responsibility of paying property taxes, utilities, and school taxes, plus, insurance, and then we need to feed our families and pay for our food. So if you're putting a cap on the rent we charge, are you able to put a cap on utility costs, on construction material costs that are skyrocketing? In some instances, they were quadruple in prices. In the insurance premium that's going up high, in the labor costs, property and school taxes that, always increasing. If you put a cap on that, on all these materials, maybe you could entertain, capping the rent that we charge. And, I don't know why the landlord are being the scapegoat of this crisis. I know we have a crisis, you're looking into that. So the general atmosphere here is pro-tenant, against landlord, and that really must change. Please stop scapegoating the landlord for the housing problem the city currently is facing. Thank you.
We agree with Mohammed when it comes to the scapegoat, because we mentioned that later on in our testimony in other words, that with all of the increased costs that we are born with, due to the inflation, the economy, and all the other stuff, and then when you add in rent caps, rent regulation, rent, all of that, that's going to create one heck of a mess in the housing industry, not only in Schenectady, New York, but all over.
Hi, my name is Vonda McGill, and I am a landlord. And if you guys are going to, try to cap rent, so what about taxes? That should be capped also. And if you guys feel the need to cap our income, because that's my bread and butter, so should we cap yours? Because now you're starting about wages. That's my wage. That's how I make a living. That's how I...
When Vonda, who is a client of ours and a longtime friend, mentions wages and income, for many landlords across New York State and across America, and I would dare say over the world, that is our income. And for many, they have so many rental properties that is their source of income. They're working very hard on those properties. Many landlords are demonized by tenants, tenant advocates, and those who don't know any better by living off of the income that they make from rental properties. Well, that's what everybody does in this world. We make income off of what we sell, the goods, the services, from other people who are paying those bills. So why is it that landlords are the ones that are demonized by collecting money from tenants who are living on property that is not owned by the tenant? Why? She makes very good points. Again, we apologize for the lag in the video. We may find another way to do this when there is no lag from when we start the video to starting the video. The video should be playing right now. Again, we don't know why. But Vonda goes on to discuss issues in her buildings where there's weapons and police who will not get involved to help her with that problem.
I eat. That's how I pay my rent, my mortgages, my houses. So then maybe we should cap everybody's, starting with the people on the panel. That's how I feel, and I think a lot of people feel like that. Also, Schenectady PD, I understand they're not very adequate. I have, and whoever's here and they think that I'm speaking wrong, I'm not. I have no problem. This is what happened. I have a tenant that has an AK-47 in my house with 3 felonies. I went to Schenectady PD, told him to remove him. He pulled the gun on one of my workers. Yes. And you know what happened? I called at 3 o'clock. They came at 12. His wife answered the phone 12 at night and said, oh, there's no problem. Also, he destroyed my house. Now, I'm willing to fix my house up. He destroyed it because his gun went off. And they said to me, you have to wait till he's evicted. So right now he's being evicted, but now I have mold because he hit a pipe, and now the water is saturating.
It could have been a person.
It's ridiculous. I don't mind having a cap on anything, but if we're going to have a cap, everybody should have a cap also. That's how I feel. Bearers feel, black and white. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamaica Miles. I've lived in this city my entire life, and that entire time.
Now, Jamaica Miles, she's a character in and of itself. Jamaica Miles is on the Schenectady City School Board. She's also one of the co-founders of a group called All of Us. They're very radical. They go with bullhorns, megaphones, and vulgarity and nastiness across the community to let their positions known about Black Lives Matter, police brutality, and other issues that they decide to talk about. And there are videos out there on social media that you can look up, Jamaica Miles, All of Us, where they are very vulgar and very rude to many people. And the irony is that you're going to see her mention that she has been treated in a bad way through rude behavior, vulgarity issued towards her, but yet it's okay for her and her followers to do the same towards others. Again, Jamaica Miles with a group called All of Us, which her co-founder has spent time in prison for bank robbery. But she's going to be speaking on issues regarding housing, minority issues, her being asked to leave 3 different locations in their community because somebody else was moving in and they were selling the property. Landlords don't do that. Landlords don't do that. They want to keep you in the property. So how ironic is it that she goes from 3 different places?
Was in rental properties from Hamilton Hill to Upper State Street, throughout the city, the codes. And I've had experiences where property owners were absolutely amazing, and I've had experiences where property owners were absolutely horrible in the maintenance of the building and how they treated me and my children and how they spoke to me. Over a 3-year period, I lived in 3 different homes where they all were sold from underneath me. I was living there with my children. Someone bought the property, decided that they wanted to live in the property. I had 30 days to move. It happened 3 times over 3 years.
I got that high.
Transiency inside the city of Schenectady is a major concern, not just for tenants, but especially for those that have children. I happen to be a school board member, and just last night we were talking about the impact on our children and what transiency in housing, what that means for our children, the negative impact on their education. And we heard from someone just earlier a specific point relating to that. There are a number of things. I'm going to share a lot of data with all of you to take back later, but some things I want to lift up. Rent is growing faster than wages. That has been true for decades. It's not an opinion, it is a fact. Over the last 30 years, the national stock of rental units actually grew more than 13 million. But the lowest end of those rental properties fell by almost 4 million. So affordable housing is actually decreased in the last 30 years, while rental properties have increased. There is indeed a power imbalance between tenants and property owners. I want to stress that no one's property should be destroyed. It's not acceptable, it's not okay. And also,
she mentions a power imbalance. Why reference power? Power has nothing to do with it. If I own the property and you're living there, you pay rent, don't destroy the property, keep the noise down, all the things that are being asked of you. It's not a power thing, it's a human thing. But again, Jamaica Miles wants to take down that road of the power the landlord has over the tenant. The landlord doesn't see it that way. They want to just have you live in the property, keep it up, pay your rent, don't destroy it, and you live your way, we'll live our way. But essentially, they're taking down that road. She's going to be coming back on later during this town hall meeting. And when she does, she gets real radical. I think what we may do, our friends who are watching, we may not stop the video any longer because of the lag that is happening. What we may end up doing is just talking over the speaker momentarily to get our perspective over theirs, so that there's no more delay in the video as we have seen here today. Again, we apologize for this, and it will not be happening again when we were talking to those who know more than we do to stop this from happening.
Should not demand that any individual be homeless or lack housing because of someone else's disrespect to property? Are we prioritizing the property or the people? Tenants don't have right to an attorney, and they may fail to make legitimate defenses or make basic mistakes with drastic consequences like going to the wrong courtroom or not showing.
I heard a comment that tenants don't have rights to an attorney is in our local area is ridiculous. Many times a tenant will say, "Judge, I need an attorney," and the judge will dismiss the case for them to get representation, either ones that they pay for, pro bono, or legal aid society. So the notion that she states that tenants don't have a right to have an attorney, everyone has a right to an attorney, pay for one. But to expect to have a slew of attorneys, at hand to help you in court is unreasonable.
Up on the right date and time, and when that eviction is filed, it automatically is a mark against that tenant for years.
She apparently is unaware of the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019, passed on June 14, 2019, which forbids landlords from having any kind of a list, public or private, of tenants who have been or are currently being evicted. So she mentions a blacklist. Yes, we should be able to have that list. Absolutely. Landlords should be able to know who has been evicted 3, 4, 8, 9, 10 times. But she's referencing this blacklist, which they may be out there. I'm not going to deny that they are not out there. For her to publicly claim that landlords cannot know this, or that landlords actually can know all this information, is absolutely wrong, Jamaica.
For them to even get housing after that. So the opportunity to seal evictions, even the ones that are filed, even if they were held against them, to ensure that someone has the opportunity to have a house for themselves. And to ensure that we look at the fact that rent was too high in 2020, and it only has escalated since then. The market rate that some people speak about is something that is adjusted beyond belief. I will wrap up. Because in May of this year, the rent average across the US surpassed $2,000. That is something that many of us have to live with and deal with every single day. Again, there are.
You notice how she doesn't say $2,000. She's saying the studio in New York City. Because up here in this area of upstate New York, the average rents for a 3-bedroom right now are around $1,200 to $1,300, depending upon the particular neighborhood. But normally a 3-bedroom is going for that. 2 bedrooms are going for around $900 to $1,000. So when she mentions $2,000, she's not talking about the community in which she is living or speaking of. But this is something that Miss Miles does a lot. She tends to spin things her way.
So many statistics and data that are part of a national study, as well as looking at the impact and disparities of historically marginalized communities right here in this city. Everyone has a right for their property to be taken care of, and everyone has a right to have housing and to be housed.
Hi, my name is Chris Morris.
Before we begin with Chris, when Jamaica Miles mentions everyone has a right to housing, there is actually nowhere in the United States Constitution that states that people have a right to housing. Now, housing is provided. Governments won't pay rent for many people. You can work very hard and pay the rent for yourself, or work even harder to the right there with money and buy your own homes. That's what we landlords have done. I am a landlord as well, obviously, and I run our properties. But I work for that. But to demonize landlords and to say that they must provide housing to people, no, we do not. We don't have to provide housing to anyone. And the speaker that you see here coming up is Chris Morris. She's the director of the Schenectady Landlords Influence and Change. And so she's going to be speaking a little bit on issues that we're going to talk about later on.
the director of SLIC, Schenectady Landlords Influencing. And my script is home. So I'm winging it. Small landlords we're talking about in particular, we're suffering with property damage, lack of rents. COVID did a number on us. We've been going for 3 years with the changes of laws and COVID, the restrictions that have come on us, and lack of respect of the properties. But okay,
Now,
so we make that presentation and we ask for help from the city. We're asking for help
Morris
as well.
is not a landlord. She makes
So
great
what we
points,
finally
no
did
doubt about
was
it, but she's not a landlord.
take it upon ourselves to put together a task force. And that's what we're working on with the city, in collaboration with the city, with code. You need to know this, that we're making efforts to make some changes that will affect the entire community and will be a plus for the entire community to help landlords and tenants.
We know what some of the issues are that this task force is talking about. And I will tell you that some of the ideas that they are looking at are terrible. We do not support them. And we will talk about that later on in this video when members of the city council are going to speak and other speakers are going to talk about issues as well as to what Chris Morris is alluding to. Again, I can't say that. I apologize for this. We may end up not stopping the videos any longer and just talking over the speaker. It's not something that we want to do. But in order to stop this lag that continuously happens, we may end up just doing that.
And this is a program that's going to be very proactive. It's a pilot program. It will require education to landlords to start out with. And it's like a licensing certification program.
Awful, terrible, terrible,
We're putting
terrible.
details together. It should be an exciting process that people will participate in. That's what we need to have, is participation. And they will then be rewarded because they will be recognized as people who are interested in their properties. They want to maintain their properties. They want to work with the community.
Now, what she mentions here, and I don't know why it's not been introduced in her presentation, is that in the city that she speaks of, in Schenectady, New York, all landlords must be registered. It's about a 3-page, 4-page registration form. Talks about all the properties you own, your insurance company, your policy numbers, emergency contacts, all of this vast information that the city wants, and all properties in the city of Schenectady that are rented out, exclusive of single-family homes and 2-family homes, owner-occupied, must have a rental certificate. Maybe in your community it's called a certificate of occupancy, but it is something that is needed by all landlords. So why isn't there any more initiatives by her, this task force, or anyone else to introduce more regulations and more oppressions upon landlords? This licensing, really? Licensing?
And you will be able to see an upgrade of the properties. And we have to say, we are totally aware of the fact that there's the good, the bad, and the ugly on both sides of the fence, and we've been hearing that tonight.
I agree.
Let's face it, drive up any street in Schenectady, and you may see beautiful, 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 okay, and then boom, something that's nasty, or there's a whole area that's nasty. Well, whose responsibility is that? Somebody owns that property. If it's, and somebody might be living in there. Somebody owns it. Somebody's not taking care of it. And it's an embarrassment for the community. And it should be dealt with. But somebody is, whether it's an if it's let go, it is something that is
So absentee landlords
very
should be
upsetting
there
for
to
the
wipe the
nearby
butts
community
of
and for the
tenants
rest
who
of us,
mess
and it gives
themselves.
us a bad name.
An absentee
We
landlord
who
should
are
be there
trying
to clean up
to
after tenants and fix up the property.
sustain
An tenant destroys it,
housing
doesn't,
need
take care
to
of it.
feel that we are doing the right thing. We know that we are working very hard. I say the small landlords who care are working very hard, and we are working, and the city is working with us, and we're delighted with that. Code is working with us. We are going to put something in place that should make a difference, and there is that effort, and I want you all to take notice of that as it comes. You will be notified in the future. In early February, we probably are going to get things rolling. I'm going to say goodbye.
Licensing is not one of those things
Yes,
that
hello,
should happen.
everyone. I am Mary Ann Rosito. I'm president of the East Front Street Association, and I'm here to talk about absentee landlords. I hesitate because I have another word for them, and I didn't want to say it at this moment. Anyway, I believe that landlords should be registered as a small business. This way, the city can regulate what they're doing.
So if landlords are a small business, because we make money, does that mean that every business should be licensed? So if I decide to start a pooper scooper business, does that mean I can be licensed? Does that mean I can take a test, take classes? Is the instructor going to tell me when I pick up the poop from your dog that I need to stand to the right of the pile, the left of the pile? Are they going to say I can pick it up with gloves, some other apparatus, put it in a bag? Are they going to tell me how many times I can tie up the bag? Are they going to tell me that I can put some kind of disinfectant or some kind of chemical or some kind of whatever on that spot where the dog went to clean it up? And if I don't do all those things, I won't be licensed. So in her assertion, then other businesses all have to be licensed. So for those of you in this particular city or any city that may want to do this, if you want to pick up dog crap for a living, you may be licensed and take classes and pass. Unbelievable. No, landlords should not have to be licensed. Landlords should not have to take tests. Landlords should not have to pass exams and be proctored. And if you're caught cheating and you're slapped over the head with a ruler, no. So Marian's assertion that since we're a business making money, we should be regulated by the government. We already are regulated up to the hill and even higher, up to our scalp, and we should have to have more regulations put upon us. But she believes that we do. Now, I know I keep telling you I may not stop the video to talk, but there are times like this I have to. I have to. But we can promise you that next time this will not happen. We will do everything in our power to not have any more lags of any videos that we do for you. But we feel that this is so important to share with you because this can happen in any community. And we don't want it to happen.
They should
in
be
your community
licensed.
as it's happening.
If they don't follow the rules, they should be shut down. Landlords are small businesses. She has said it. She has said it on tape, that landlords. So they should be regulated. They should be licensed. And it's very disturbing to me. And I really, really wish that the city would pursue the small business license for the tenants. Thank you.
Well, I tell you, on behalf of Waterlands, we don't
All
support
right, so
it.
first off, I want the biggest issue being, what about those on disability? It's Aubrey. What about those on disability? They don't make that much a month. That $1,400 you want in rent for a shoebox, they don't make that. That's not what they get permanently disabled. Where are we supposed to live? Those slums that we don't have landlords taking care of things, we have improper working functionings and nobody's taking care of that either. We're supposed to live in lower poverty slums with no landlords being dealt with because that's where we can afford in places that aren't even safe for us to reside. Who's going to watch out for that? I mean, I have a friend living in a van right now with a cat. He can't even afford a hotel. He can't afford a room for rent. He can't afford any of that because the money to get into any place is too much.
You know, and
He
him
needs
to
money
get
to
a
survive
apartment
every
together
day.
and split the rent.
He can't put
That's
the
an
extra
idea.
aside to get a roof over his head, and now it's winter time. And he's literally living in a minivan with a cat. So what are these people on limited incomes that are disabled and sick to no choice, no fault of their own supposed to do with these rising costs?
We
We're
agree
all
with
about
that,
to
but
be
that's not
homeless.
the issues of the
That's all I
landlord.
have to say.
What all of us put upon us, that's why rising prices of rent are happening. The regulations of that.
Hi, good evening.
makes us
Thanks
going
for
up.
having this forum tonight. My name is Maureen Connor, and I've lived in Schenectady 30 years here on a whim, and I'm still here. And I've been owning property for the last 20 years. I bought my first property from a woman that I rented from, and one of the things that she said to me is, I always want to make sure my properties that I rent to my tenants are places that I would live. And I feel that I have followed that motto ever since. In the intervening years, I've got to say, I'm probably doing something wrong because I'm not getting $1,400 rent for apartments. I'm not getting $1,300 rent with rent, but we all have, you know, I have a right to provide good housing to people, but I also have a right to not be taken advantage of.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angelique McGirt. I've owned property in Schenectady, New York from 2005. To address the issue that you have, which is an opinion, what are the challenges? Let me tell you something. As a decent landlord with property that is livable, my challenges is tenants don't want to pay rent a lot of times. Since the pandemic, they feel that they have a fiduciary reason to just live for free.
Yes,
And they do not use the police system. We hear all of this about bad landlords, bad landlords. Who they use? Code enforcement. They take off your smoke detectors. They take off the knobs off the stove. They do anything to stop the payment. So this is a buildup of frustration for me because I have tenants living in houses that I can't get rid of. Even when they have firearms, even when they're creating mold, even when they're doing everything, nobody's sharing information. It's like the monetary agreement is only for the landlord. When we talk about increase in rent, nobody's talking about decrease in taxes. You have to have a certain amount of monetary flow to even survive in Schenectady to own a property. The reason why it seems so simple is because properties in Schenectady have always been below market value of the entire state. So people have this idea that they should live closer to free than what's happening to the landlord. Your taxes go up to $5,000. How can your rent stay at $200? I mean, you don't go into this to take care of the tenant. You go in this to have a viable living. We know this is not a flip state or area because we have too many on the tax rolls that have been left away. So it has to be looked at in a collaboration of what's the best thing for the community, for the tenant, for the landlord, and to perpetuate home occupancy and home ownership. That's all I got to say.
Great points.
Hi, good evening. Reverend Nicole Harris, the NAACP president and pastor of Dory Memorial and Zion Church. So I want to say, first, you know, I've done a lot of going to different houses, visiting members or visiting people in the community, and I am concerned, one, with the condition of some of the houses that are being rented. I have a question of how many inspectors we have that work for the city that would go out to inspect these houses. I understand, I've been a landlord, so I understand having tenants that don't properly take care of your house and things like that. But some of the things that I have seen are flat out like code violations. Like, why is somebody living here? No one should be living here. So some of the things that I think may be happening is that, okay, so it doesn't take much for a landlord to know that they can raise the rent. If Section 8 is giving you more money, obviously the rates of rent have gone up. Or you look at what the information that HUD puts out. Oh, I can go up on the rent. HUD is going up on their numbers. I can go up on mine. However, and the cost of rent has gone up nationally by 13%. But I want to say this: Schenectady is not Brooklyn. We are not Harlem. Okay, people are not making that kind of money around here. The council president mentioned the other night the median income in this city. So rents have gone up, but salaries have not. And so people eventually are going to get pushed out of their homes. And I've had that happen to some of my members already. They can't afford the new cost of living that is coming. Okay, so that's one piece. So the other part is, can the city give any kind of incentives? Like, I know you guys can't do anything about what HUD is saying or what Section 8 is saying about what rent costs should be. Like, that's outside of your, authority. But maybe incentives for landlords who do keep their property the way that they should. Or I don't know. I'm gonna leave that to y'all. But but I think that if that was happening, then it kind of would balance things out a little bit. And then the last thing I want to tell you is about a member of my church who actually lives in Virginia right now. Okay, she was asked by her landlord to move. He said, I'm moving a family member in. Went over there with her. I was helping her pack. Well, he's moving a family member in. She could not find a place in Schenectady she could afford. She ended up moving with family to Virginia. I went by the house a couple weeks later. There was a for rent sign in the window. So he was not moving a family member, and he probably just wanted to raise the rent and didn't want it to do it to.
Unless this landlord had received ERAP, then that landlord can raise the rent in this jurisdiction of where she speaks. The landlord can tell the tenant, not seeing the lease. The landlord can say, listen, I want you to go. Again, ERAP was not involved. The landlord did not have to give a reason as to why he wanted the tenant to move. But why would anybody, if you know that you can get $200 or $300 more a month, because that's what the fair market rent is in that community, why would you not get $200 or $300 more a month? How many of you out there, and this is for everyone, but in particular tenants, how many of you would turn down a pay increase at your job? You wouldn't. So if a landlord can charge you $100 or more, whatever that may be, that meets the whole area of what the rent's out, why would they not do that? So again, we have this pastor, seems like a nice lady, who is quasi-demonizing the landlord for wanting to raise the rent to the point where he or she is going to make a few $1,000s more a year. Why would they not do that?
Poor Darcel, who's been in my house for the last 15 years. So I think things like that are happening where people are being pushed out. And I don't want to see it happen. I've been here for 4 years now pastoring. I think Schenectady is cool, nice people and everything. But I'm watching this happen to the people that I serve in my congregation and in the community where their rents are going up, but their salaries are staying the same.
My name is Janice. I am a landlord. Have been a landlord here in Schenectady for over 30 years. I am a retired social worker for Schenectady County. I have seen the gamut from one end of the spectrum to the other. The problem that I think that we have as a community is that, many years ago, a group of landlords, new owners came in and they, improved the property, but then they started increasing the rents. I own 5 pieces of property here in Schenectady. One piece is in Bellevue, and my tenants, I have a 2-family and 2 bedrooms each. I'm getting $900 each, and I just went up for the first time last year. So my tenants are asking me, well, are you going to go up on the rent? I said no. Because as everybody here indicated, that the income hasn't gone up, but there's people that came into our community. I made sure to tell you that I've been a landlord in Schenectady for 30 years. Some people are very new to our community, and I'm talking about in the last 5 to 10 years, and even maybe not even that long. They changed the face of our landscape, and now somebody has to put the brakes on it. As a landlord, I think we need rental caps. I think we need to hold landlords responsible to make sure that the property is up to code and livable. But I also think that tenants have to pay your rent. All those excuses about, your income didn't change. I was a social worker, so I know disability didn't change regardless of what happened with the pandemic.
True.
So if you was on a fixed income, you ain't lose no money.
Absolutely.
And some of y'all got money because some people got the unemployment and the extra $600 and all that. So that whole gamut that society put out there, oh, we're in a pandemic, not to pay your bills, was the wrong thing to do. And now we're here, people. So we all have to be responsible, period. And our system, our elected officials, y'all got to put some brakes on some of these rental issues, because you got landlords that are charging $1,300 and $1,400 for something that these people cannot pay more than $1,000 or $900.
You and your rental property.
HUD, MHA, they're increasing the allotment only in certain communities and only for certain people. As a social worker, I did home visits. And I used to say to HUD, I used to call municipal housing, Mr. Hominick, and say, hey, why y'all letting this go? You got people with the ceilings falling down and whatever, and you're cutting a check for them every month. So we do need some watchdogs out here, people. And if that's not a good word, but that's what I'm saying. We need our code enforcement to do what they got to do so that people can live decently, but we got to put a cap on these rents.
Absolutely, that's cap.
Hi, Brendan. I just wanted to make the comment that sometimes I'm not a landlord, I'm just a homeowner, but we also have to be cautious about whatever regulations or if there was some people suggested rent caps or rent control. If that's put in, we also might risk putting Schenectady at a disadvantage, because one thing is the proven way to make sure rents are stabilized is to make sure that the number of units in a city keeps up with the demand of housing. And so there's been studies that have been done that say that if a city puts in rent control, they sometimes become less desirable to developers, both large and small, who might like to build new housing here. And because of unintended consequences, those number of units do not increase. And then when the number of units don't increase to keep up with the demand of housing, then you result in higher rent prices. So I hope the city council doesn't rush into anything without looking at what other possible unintended consequences that there might be. And, you know, I know there's probably just a philosophical disagreement with some people on what the role of government should be. If you're a person who owns a two-family home and you live in one and you rent out one unit to the other person, is it really the role of the government to say what you should be charging for rent?
Yes.
Some people might say yes. I would personally say no.
We say no too.
But I would just hope that the city council doesn't rush into anything, and that you look at whatever unintended consequences might happen if you look to create some regulations such as rent control.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. And my name is Pearl. I'm a select member. Just add to the gentleman's point regarding to unintended consequences. I'm a realtor. I can tell you that there are lots of landlords in the city of Schenectady. They are very, very concerned. On one hand, they are not able to collect the rent, and they cannot even afford to fix some of the damages being done by certain tenants. And so in that situation, they want to sell, or they couldn't even maintain the property in a rentable condition. So that in turn is going to impact the community and the surrounding houses. And they want to sell. That's one end. On the other end, when I am also sell, because being a realtor, I sell to investors in the capital region. I try to bring them to Schenectady, and hopefully they can purchase property in Schenectady, provide more rental units so we can inject competition or make a better conditions property. But I cannot convince them.
Just wanted to point a couple things out. When I heard about this forum, I was happy to hear that it was coming to play. I'm happy to see that we have various voices in this room. I'm from Brooklyn. I've been in this area now for 7 years. And when I first came here and I started seeing a lot of the activity that was happening, it was far too familiar. And over the last few years, the pandemic, surprisingly, but not so surprisingly, sped it up. We've seen so much development here in Schenectady. Just envision that. But what I don't see is postings of affordable housing units in these
It's all over the
developments.
place. They have it everywhere. My name is Matthew Lyman, and I am the host of the Landlord Advocates. We are in the top 4% of over 52 million channels on YouTube. Rent stabilization. Rent stabilization is for buildings built between 1947 and 1974. It applies to communities that have vacancy rates at less than 5%. It also applies to those buildings with 6 or more apartments. Only 182 cities across America have rent stabilization. 32 states have actually forbidden rent stabilization. 4 states allow it: Maryland, California, New York, and New Jersey. In New York State, under the law of rent stabilization, tenants can have their leases renewed for up to 2 years whether the landlord wants it or not. Earlier this year, in June, at a City Council committee meeting, some comments were made by members of the City Council. One was that tax stability leads to housing stability. No way. There are so many other expenses that housing providers have that tax stability could hardly lead to housing stability. Another one mentioned that they want to incentivize landlords to accept rent stabilization. There is no business or entrepreneur anywhere on this planet or any planet that would support any government initiative or services they provide. That is what the free market economy will do. It was also stated that a $100 rent increase leads to 9% in homelessness. 9% increase. Then why have not all the other providers of goods and services, whose prices have gone up for every American family, have not been called on the carpet as much as housing providers? Why are there no discussions with them or initiatives to stymie what they charge for what they provide to Schenectadians and other Americans? Rent control limits how much a landlord may charge for an apartment or dwelling. It also puts restrictions on evictions. Outside of New York City, the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal will determine how much you may raise your rent. Only 1 of 3 ways you can do that. Listen to this. 1, the landlord must prove a hardship to the Department of Housing and Community Renewal, or the owner installs a major capital improvement to the building. He or she then can ask that department for a rent increase. Or C, the landlord receives a written consent from the tenant to increase the rent. Are you kidding me?
Rent control and rent stabilization will find many tenants looking for a place to reside, as with these and other laws, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, of which landlords are not allowed to check any registry, public or private, to see if that prospective tenant has been evicted. We also mentioned the ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which has no money, but tenants can apply, and as long as the application remains open, the tenant cannot be evicted. And good cause eviction that has been shot down in Nassau and in the city of Albany, and has been tried 4 times in the state of New York, has been shot down every time. And pending legislation on housing providers are being very pragmatic in placing tenants, as it has become very tedious, costly, and likely to remove undesirable or non-paying tenants. These have led to increases in rent. The more government tries to solve housing issues, the more they create, thus making it harder on the good, honest, and hardworking tenants to find the safe and affordable housing that many of you and others are seeking. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tom Carey. I'm with Schenectady United Neighborhoods. We're a coalition of 13 neighborhood associations across the city. First, I want to encourage the city and the council to continue code enforcement is a very important issue in all of our neighborhoods, and we feel that more needs to be invested in that, and we need a more serious code enforcement program on part of the city.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Hafiz. I'm speaking for a couple of more minutes because of the comments that I've heard. We're not the social service landlord. We're not the social service department. We're not obligated to listen to the tenant's financial problems or his income of $600 a month and try to work with them and have installment and all this. Let some government agency do that for you, okay? We go to court and then we deal with the social service representative there, I think Donna, and she tells us that. You're a landlord, you're not the social service department, okay? Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Could you just address it?
Okay. In addition, housing is not our job. It's a government responsibility. So the government should provide housing. If people are advocating that we become business owners and register as business owners, nobody gets into business to lose money. Nobody wants to lose money. If I'm losing money year after year, I'm going to either be run out of business or actually voluntarily leave that kind of business. So the government should take more active role. You should go and raise money to build more. If there's shortage in Schenectady of housing unit, you should build additional housing unit. Okay, you should alleviate the problem of demolition of all these housing units or houses, the good houses that were demolished. That reduced the number of houses. You should work on solution of providing additional funds for people who don't have enough funds. It's not the responsibility of the landlords. In addition to the comment that Councilman Morovino made about taxes, taxes might not have been increased, but there are hidden taxes, just like Romeo had mentioned a minute ago. There are hidden taxes. There are fees everywhere. There is inspection fee. There is re-inspection fee. There are fees for permit. If you have to replace the sheetrock, there is a permit fee. Your roof, there is a permit fee. For plumbing, there is a permit fee. For electrician, there is a permit fee. There are administrative fee. Every time a code officer goes to your house, he charges you $50. And if he goes again to re-inspect, charge you another $50. And then if he gives you a penalty, it quadruples. It even in the code, it has 5 times the effect. During the pandemic, I went to court once because one tenant refused to pay the rent, and then she went complaining to code, and then when I went there with a fine that was $100, multiplying every day by the time I went to court, the fine was about $5,000. So these are all additional costs to landlord. Again, because of the limited supply. It's not really the landlord's issue. You guys should work on increasing the number of rental units. And if the number of rental units increase in the city, of course the rent is going to be stabilized. The rent will be decreased. It's not really the responsibility of the landlord. That's all I wanted to say for now. Thank you.
Rents will go down, more rental property available.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Pavla. I want to thank the folks who shared, because it takes courage to share your story from your perspective. I think it's very important that we do remember that housing is a basic human need. And that's the end of the conversation to some degree.
That's something that landlords should have to
We
provide
can't ask
and compensate.
the government to not expect rent to be raised if we're saying you have to be the ones that solve it. So if we're saying you have to solve it and then say, but don't raise rent, well, we're a little bit backwards there.
Agreed.
I think it's important that we understand it is for us as a community to really think through what we need to do to ultimately come together, hold ourselves and each other as a community accountable,
I just have one quick fun fact, because someone else came up twice, so I couldn't help myself. Despite the importance of rental assistance, more federal dollars go to home ownership subsidiaries like the mortgage interest rate instead of families that struggle the most to afford housing. So the federal government does a lot for money that goes to home ownership, while 23.4 million low-income American renters pay more than half their income for housing, and most don't receive rental assistance due to funding limitations. There is not a lack of precedent for helping individuals have homes because homes and land were given away by the federal government to individuals, very specific individuals, while denying the formerly enslaved Africans any land whatsoever and telling them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but giving acres and land and property to those white for giving, including the fact that the federal government now gives rebates and incentives to homeowners that we do not also see for our low-income families that are struggling every single day. Thank you.
You know, she's not thinking about the Section 8 programs and the Department of Social Service funds that go and help tenants. She's not thinking about the food stamps programs, the Medicaid program. She's not thinking about any of those, the HEAP, Home Energy Assistance Program, that go for low income. There's a lot of programs out there for low-income individuals. And let's think about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, where over the last couple of years, since February, March of 2020, many tenants haven't paid a damn dime in rent, and here it is, December 2022, and still no money coming in. And yet they're still living there. So we're talking about no money available. There's money available for everyone. They just got to know where to find it, use it to buy homes. There's programs there. Even in the city of Schenectady, there are programs that are available to help new homeowners. There may be programs to put the money down. They don't need to put down 20%. There are some programs where you put down 3 or 4%. So when she says there's those programs there and she wants to target the white people for getting them, every race, every creed, every nationality, whatever you want to call it, has the same accessibility to those programs as everyone else. We had a feeling that Ms. Miles was going to go down that road, and given the second opportunity to speak, she took it.
Again, my name is Janice. One of the things that we have to be clear is that when you talk about inequities, Black and brown folks in this country, in Schenectady, and everywhere, we have been at the bottom, okay? Now you see that we have a council that's very diverse for the first time in the history of Schenectady. Give us a hand, give them a hand. We got 4 people that look like us up in here. You know, and for the longest, we wasn't represented. It's time that, you know, these kind of policies and...
When she says not represented, so because the skin color that we have takes away representation of the population, that's unbelievable. And she wow, it's unbelievable. When she talks about inequities, I would tell you, we have been in the industry for 32 years working with landlords. For 32 years. We have over 1,300 clients. A majority of them are not white. Again, a majority, a super majority of the clients that we work with who have tenants are not white. So I must say I'm a little taken aback by her comments of underrepresentation, no representation. Do I believe that the non-whites on the city council don't represent my interests when it comes to money? I don't believe that. Do I believe that they represent interests that are adverse to my position and the position of many housing providers? Yes, I do. But it doesn't have anything to do with their skin.
These issues, they're drastically affecting people that look like me. So I might be one that happen to have a few properties. Maybe there's a few of us.
There's a lot
but
of
the masses of us
a lot of you
are being affected
non-white
by this inequities that is talked about. We all don't get the same privileges, people. The privileges that come to this side don't look like the same privileges that's on this side. So we got to recognize that. And we got to talk about equity and understanding that we all have a right to fair and equal and affordable housing and decent housing. Not just those that look like this, but all of us, because we're one people. And so that's what I want y'all to understand. Because as we look at all of these policies and our lawmakers are going to hopefully enact some policies, you got to understand that there's a group of people that are most affected. And those people are people that look like me. So thank you.
How is that?
And let's keep that at the forefront because that's real. And it hasn't changed in America yet.
Anybody that's not living in a place, whether they're black or white, Indian, Asian, doesn't matter. They're not living there. To isolate white people on that is very wrong. This is the man that canceled the first meeting because of us. He won't admit it, but we believe it was. Howard Williams.
It's a beautiful site, as it's been identified a lot throughout this evening. This present that's in this room is very, very diverse, well represented for what this event looks like. There are multiple different aspects of how this conversation of housing affects each and every one of us where you currently sit. And our experiences are vast. So the one thing that we've heard throughout these dialogues is it's a complicated conversation that cannot be totally borne by us as the council. And that's why it's important to hear your feedback, to hear your input. So I know there was a young woman that came from
the only initiatives that it can really look at are ways to restrict how much landlords charge their rent. That's about the only thing that they can do.
The one on the 19th, it is your responsibility to remain engaged and keep us focused on making sure this is not a one-off.
Or they're going to make it even harder through this licensing program that they're talking about.
It does not lead to any long-term change in the community, and I can promise you, we are not sitting here with a pen, just paying lip service as Councilman so frequently says. So I'm excited to do the first one because I want to make sure we take an opportunity to highlight where we are. I'm going to put the spotlight on Shane Barley, and I know he has an elevator pitch, but this is a beautiful resource that we have in the city of Schenectady.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all.
This is Doreen Ross. She's a member of the city council.
When I was campaigning, people would say, I only see politicians when they're out campaigning. Well, it's difficult to get to everyone in the city all the time. So it's wonderful for you all to come out.
She's also a landlord who had a very terrible tenant that she didn't get rid of, caused problems for her and lots of expense.
I'm a landlord, I'm a homeowner. We all struggle. We really do. And there's a lot of great landlords out there, and there's a lot of great tenants. And what we heard here tonight, I don't know whether it's going to how things are going to play out from here, but as Council Person Williams said, it's your responsibility to keep it in the forefront with each and every one of us. Reach out to each of us via email or telephones, and to come to council meetings and see what we're doing. So again, I'd like to just thank you all for being here.
This is John Palomino, actually a friend of mine. We had many issues, but on this one issue that he's going to discuss, we do not.
Here tonight, that's what we already know, this is a complex issue. It's very difficult. It ranges from faulty economic policies at the federal level to different policies at the state and local level. On the local level, the reality is, while it sounds nice, rent stabilization is not going to solve the problem.
We agree there, John.
But there are things that we can do. For example, mixed income development, where we have 100 units, making up numbers, being developed, and we require 10, 20% to be a certain income class, and the others broken down so forth. Those are real policies we can do that can impact change. Having licensed landlords will not only
require landlords to be in the system and have proper property.
Now, I like John. He's a friend of mine. I knew his dad for years. That being said, there are already programs in place. In the city of Schenectady, they have to have registration. All landlords must be registered. If they're not local, they must have a local representative that can be certain papers from code enforcement, the courts, the corporation counsel's office, wherever that may be, or whoever that may be. And they have to have a rental certificate issued. Again, that is exclusive of single-family homes, two-family homes that are owner-occupied. So John did, I will tell you, had reached out to me a couple of times to talk to me about this licensing program idea. And I will tell you, I haven't talked to him about it yet. But I don't support it. And the reason why I don't support any licensing is that it's going to go on to something else after that, something else after that. Where will it end? There's already policies in place that will reward landlords by having the rental certificate and the properties in well order. Evidently against the victim, they had the rental, which is to the benefit of the landlord. If you don't have a rental certificate and there's problems in the apartment that will help you, that will hurt you in court, it will hurt you during the eviction process with the sheriff's department. It will hurt you in the city for not having that. So why are we discussing anything more to have licensing or anything else like that on the landlords? And then they have to take classes, pass-fail test, and then they have to take refresher classes every year. What are they going to have to do to have this license? Is it a 30-hour class, a 15-hour class? What does it give them after they get this license? The city can't have a preferred landlord list. So what does it get them? Does it get them a free pass in court? Oh, I took a class on how to be a landlord. So therefore, any arguments that the tenant may raise in court is moot. Because that can't happen. Under the Constitution, they have a right to be heard in court and a right to present their case. So just because a landlord may have, hey, judge, I'm a licensed landlord. Therefore, all the stuff that the tenant says isn't, no, it's not real. It doesn't matter.
That renters can be assured that they're getting a good quality apartment.
And then rental certificate.
To the fire. Educating renters as to what are their rights is important. Making sure that you have a contract. Making sure that your landlord is either licensed, if we get to that point, or has a rental contract.
Landlords don't have to have a rental contract per se in writing.
Something that's really important.
I mean, an oral agreement. You pay a certain amount every month. If you don't, they evict you.
There's things we could probably do through the development office of educating renters so that they know their rights and they don't get taken advantage of.
All right, what about landlords, Sean?
Sounds nice.
Many landlords are being taken advantage of, and tenants know many, many rights, and they take advantage of those things that are not even their rights. I've seen it happen in 32 years, and we're going to see it until the day I personally leave this earth.
And you guys need to put pressure on your state representatives as well as your federal representatives, where the real money, real power is to really have a major impact on housing issues. And that's where we can impact change together. So while it might not be the most popular thing to say that, there's other avenues we can take.
John is a very intelligent college professor. Like I said, he's a friend of mine. Some of the issues that he brought up that evening, I disagree with him, but we're still friends.
So again, I also want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I think it was a great input, and I appreciate.
Now you will see, at one point when Council President Marion Porterfield brings up ERAP, she looks directly at me. She could have discussed with me during my presentation, my testimony, about ERAP, and there's no money for ERAP, but they're still accepting applications. At that point, this not being a city council meeting, she had the ability, which she did in other parts that are not on the tape, on the video, where she could have dialogue with the members of the audience or the speaker. She chose not to. Now, at this point when they're speaking, the privilege on the floor was no longer open, so it was up to the members of the city council to speak. She brought up ERAT, and she brought it up really heavy, and she looked directly at me, and you will see, because when she's looking at the camera's right there, when she mentioned about ERAT, and yes, ERAT does have money, and yes, ERAT is still open. You will see her discuss this momentarily, but you will see her look directly at me on the camera.
Appreciate the whole kind of like atmosphere in the room. I really, really do. Also, I think it was already mentioned, but there is a program here called Homeownership Made Easy, because we know that homeownership stabilizes neighborhoods. It also has an impact on crime. So, you know, I forget that.
Now, here goes, she just mentioned that homeownership, there's a decrease in crime in the community. So that begs the question, who are the perpetrators of the crimes in those communities who are not homeowners? So if you own a home, by her assertion, the crime rate goes down. But if you don't own the home in which you live and reside, the crime rate goes up. Is she saying that tenants are the cause of the rate of crime in the community? Is that what she's saying? Is she saying that people are coming from outside of that community and are presenting crime and initiating crime upon the community from outside the community by which they live? Or is she saying that the tenants are causing an increase in crime because they're not homeowners? That's a question that if she had brought that up, I would have asked her, which I may still take that opportunity to ask her that question. So homeownership cuts down on crime. That is a $64,000 question.
ERAT does have money. I made that clear today, to make that phone call today, not yesterday, but today. And they said, yes, they do, there is funding. So I just want to be clear about that. I don't know how long it's going to last, but as of today, we did have money. So I don't want people to walk away with the idea otherwise. And all of you can call. So I don't want to take any more time. We're already past 7:30. But I do want you to know that we are listening. We are taking into consideration everything that you said. And
now, that was the end of the town hall meeting. The town hall meeting, like I said, went for about 2.5 hours. We had to reduce it down quite a bit, even though here we are at the 1 hour and 18 minute mark. We would have loved to have done the whole video and done our commentary and rebuttal on many comments that were made, but we extrapolated the highlights to share with you here. But we are going to do more reactionary videos. But as you can see, it looks like licensing in the city of Schenectady is what they want to do. And they do have a Democratic majority. Actually, the entire city council and the mayor are of the Democratic Party. And quite frankly, they may end up wanting to pass this licensing program. It looks like it has the support of the leader of the landlord group, who, with no disrespect intended, is not a landlord. She is a tenant. Who she does do property management, and the properties that she manages are beautiful. Not going to deny it. She keeps them up very well. She does have her heart in the right place. She does work very hard for landlords, but at the end of the day, she is not a landlord. So for her to support this licensing program, I'm going to tell you, I don't support it, and I think a lot of landlords out there would not support it, because you already have programs in place called the rental certificate, the rental landlord registration that they have in the city. And there's other programs out there that can make sure that the properties are kept up the way that they're supposed to be. But to now throw licensing on top of that, or whatever other initiatives that they may have, what government needs to realize, like I said in my presentation, they're trying to fix problems, but the problems that they're trying to fix don't exist until they're trying to fix them. Then they exist. I know it's a tongue twister, but it's a fact. You want to fix problems that don't exist. Then the initiatives that you take to fix those problems actually create the problems that don't exist. and exacerbate it even further. And that's why rents are going up. They're going up because between no rent for almost 3 years, tenants destroying property and you can't get them out. Very hard to do so. When inflation as high as it is, and then when you throw in all of these additional oppressive laws and oppressive legislation that could cause eviction, when you throw all that in, landlords have to have the rents higher up to make it viable for them to say, I'm willing to be a housing provider because I'm making enough money to satisfy what I need to have satisfied to allow me to continue to be a housing provider, not only in the city of Schenectady, not only in the state of New York, but all over the United States, and again, all over the planet. When you lay down all these oppressions upon housing providers, you're only asking for rents to go up higher on those people that you're seeking to help. Do not initiate licensing in the city of Schenectady or anywhere else. We repeal many aspects, if not all, of the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, and allow landlords also to decide what sources of revenue they are willing to accept for the occupancy of the tenants who might be on DSS or Section 8. That is not allowed in the state of New York either. That is actually a crime under the human rights law. So when you throw all these oppressions upon our shoulders and all of these rules and regulations and legislation and laws, you're only going to create that which you don't want to have happen. Landlords, thank you for watching. We know it's a long video. We ask that you subscribe to our channel, The Landlord Advocates on YouTube. Share this video across many other platforms. Ask questions of us. We will be there hoping to answer all the questions that you have. And until then, take care.